Hello and welcome to the Light Forest podcast. My name is Dave and I have conversations with changemakers from around the world as we explore the roots to our planetary crisis. And together we learn to live with more light and contribute to the regeneration of our planet. In this conversation, we're joined by Faye Shapiro, a master vocalist, independent therapist, and introvert activist. She is the creatrix of Plexus Voice, a psycho-somatic technology to weave a new sound reality for personal and collective healing. In this conversation, we are introduced to sound as a lens to understand and experiencing life. Faye weaves in many perspectives from metaphysics, spirituality, biology to give us a masterclass on sound, healing, and our bodies. Faye is a therapist working with numerous healing modalities she's encountered in her own personal journey, from Vipassana and Carl Jung to Amazonian shamanism and development trauma healing. In the conversation, Faye opens a new dimension to explain how our disconnection from the vibration of our bodies is a source of so much fear and anxiety that we feel today. She shares very practical tools and perspectives which she uses in her own workshops to help us feel into the touch of sound and get in touch with our inner voice and live life with more expression.
Even when it's hard, even when it's scary.
Faye is also a musician, and her music can be found on YouTube, BandLab, or your favorite app of choice, including this beautiful song, Even.
Love, let me follow, 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 love.
Faye is from Israel, where she grew up. She shares a very powerful trauma and energetic informed perspective to understand the state of Israel and the invisible forces driving its genocidal policies today. She also shares a path of healing and redemption, of how we may move from this dark forest present to a light forest world, which she is playing a part in. Listeners, as you tune in to this conversation, I invite you to take pauses, to feel into your body and how it feels as you receive these vibrations of light that Faye transmits. And as always, thank you so much for joining. If you haven't already, I'd love if you could hit that subscribe button. It means a lot and can help to the growing of this forest. And with that, let's move to our conversation with Faye. Faye, welcome to the Light Forest podcast.
Thank you so much, Deb, for this beautiful introduction, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
Ah, lovely. Well, we stand together in the forest. I'd love to invite you, Faye, to share your vision, your perspective on life through sound, how you weave a new sound reality.
So thank you for this invitation. As I'm talking about it, I'm also experiencing it. And so we're going to do like a mixture of talking about it and bringing what's alive in the moment. And so first of all, weaving a sound reality. So that's kind of a wordplay around sound as in safe. So feeling safe and sound, which is very interesting. And also sound as vibratory, sonic, musical maybe. And for me, it has been a transition from moving from a perception of reality, which I inherited and received from my parents and my peers and from the air in the society. So moving from that kind of, let's say, perception of reality into something which is more accurate to what my actual experience is and what my personal experience is. And if I can say it shortly, it's moving from a world of separate things into a world of interwoven waves of movement and of vibration. So it's actually stepping into a vibrational reality. This has many, many, many researches and also worlds of other thinkers that are thinking around quantum physics and sound. And it's been discussed in every tradition, really, that the world was created by sound and that what we see as a material reality is actually a condensation of vibration. It's just very dense vibration that we perceive as a thing that is solid and fixed, but actually, as also in Buddhist tradition is often referred to, is this anicca, this like ever-changing, always in a flux, always in a state of change. And that actually, for me, in my journey, the first realization of that in such a deep sense, like the gap between what I'm told to think and what actually I'm perceiving as reality, was indeed in Vipassana retreat, which I was very fortunate to attend at 17. So my crazy parents took me to a Vipassana retreat and I came really without much baggage. So I just did the practice and it worked. And around the day 5 or something, my whole sense of a solid body kind of melted and I just felt my being as a field of vibration. And that filled me with such joy. It could have been scary, but it wasn't. It was actually such a pleasure. It was a feeling of movement and aliveness that I never really felt before, but I knew it's possible and I knew it was the reality for me. Then really started my conscious kind of spiritual or existential journey in this life where I was like, wow, I have to understand what is this experience and I can't go back into being a something, a somebody. I am, connected to and interwoven with everything. So that's kind of the shift that I am exploring. And this has many, many implications, both in how we perceive our bodies and ourselves in relationships, politically, in terms of creativity, in terms of nourishment, in really every aspect of our life. It has such incredible implications. And so I'm very, very passionate about creating a consciousness. So spaces, retreats, writings that kind of awaken our perception to that reality that I perceive it myself, and I'm kind of like assuming that others also can benefit from that perspective. So that's what I do.
Wow. I mean, yeah, sound. I mean, we are currently communicating through sound, through
Yeah.
vibration. You are sitting in Israel, I'm in Thailand,
Right.
and somehow through this space we are able to communicate, and
Right.
it's sometimes hard to comprehend because sound sometimes feels just limited to the ears on a day to day, without being in states of spaciousness and without being too reflective. It can just feel like sound is simply an auditory experience and that's all it is. But what I hear you say very clearly is that sound is everything in a way. Sound makes up and illuminates life.
Yes.
Yeah, help us understand that a bit more, especially from this perspective that you shared about how we start to identify as people
Yeah.
and as individuals, and
Yeah,
how
sure.
sound maybe has experienced and influenced our own sense of identity.
Right. So this is something really interesting that you're bringing up, which is sound is often perceived in our culture as only auditory. But sound has actually two ways of being experienced through the senses, right? It's one thing, but we experience it through different senses. So one sense is the auditory, which is sound vibration that are actually physically moving in the space, reaching my eardrum, going through the whole mechanism of the ear, eventually reaching some place where they become electrical currents, electrical signals, and somehow, nobody knows still how, they turn into an auditory experience, into music or into noise. So that's like one aspect of the translation of these vibrations. But a huge aspect that is actually so encompassing and is not often given the enough attention is the touch experience. And the touch experience is the most primary sense. It's the sense that is based on connection, okay? It's the most primary sense we have. Really, it's the baby kangaroo making its space from the womb into the pocket. It's this very mammalian kind of attachment. And it has many forms. It's also it's this power of love, really, that connects any being to the source. In the energetical flow of life, so life is kind of like moving between source into form and back into source, right? And this movement of becoming and unbecoming is kind of conducted by love. And the sense that is perceiving that is the sense of touch. So when we touch, we feel connected, we feel one, we feel united. And so it's very, very interesting because, even now as you're speaking in Thailand and I'm sitting in Israel, so far away geographically, and through the technology, like all your voice is traveling all the way from Thailand through all the platforms and all the different translations of energy, and somehow is reaching me and is actually touching my body. So your voice is really touching my body, and the sense of how sound is traveling from the source of the sound into the perceiver, right? That is very interesting to me. And that is actually, this is beyond the auditory, because the auditory is not really here in the tactile experience. The auditory is the imagined, right? It's the music that we are conjuring from sounds that are arriving. And in this reality is about touch, right?
And sound, touch through vibration, through sound is what you're saying.
Yeah. So for example, even now, I'm speaking, right? And I can totally focus on the intellectual information that I'm transferring mentally. But at the same time, there is a body is literally vibrating. The air, the vocal cords are blocking the air from the lungs, and the air is coming out, right? In very short outbursts. We'll talk about it more later. But it literally creates vibrations that are touching my body. And that sense of touch, that is a primary way of communication that us, with the very intellectualized, very abstract type of culture that we've created, we kind of disconnected from that part of ourselves. We don't really feel, most of the humans, don't really feel their voice as something that touches their own body. But the voice becomes sort of like something that is used to communicate something or to get something. It's very goal-oriented.
Tell me more about this disconnection that we have with our bodies and sound.
Yeah. So the body is the ocean and we are an island, right? Like the body, I say, as the first kind of contact with the subconscious. So I have myself, which is my conscious self, my ego, my personality, whoever I chose myself to be through life. And then there is all the things that happen in my life, and primarily through my body. It's the way I experience life. It's the way I experience reality. And so the body speaks, and the body speaks constantly. And the body says things that we like and also things that we don't like. So there is discomfort, pain, fear, all kinds of emotions also that we tend to not want to experience because we're not taught how to feel safe when we experience them. We have a culture that says, feel as good as possible, as long as possible, and avoid feeling bad. We have a culture that is afraid of anything that is not happy, because there are interests of powerful people, powerful entities, whatever stories you want to tell, that are benefiting from this disconnect, for sure.
So advantage of us not being able to feel into our authenticity. and feel into
Yeah.
our bodies
Yes.
and listen.
Yes, we are actually disconnected from our power. So around the head, this is the personality. And around the heart, this is our emotional body. And then below the heart, from the solar plexus down into the womb, into the genitals, into the root, those are areas that are associated with rejection, with shame, with fear. And we try to kind of create ways that we can repress that, but then have like a fetishized over, pornographic way of like getting in touch with those energies. And we don't really know how to navigate that. But actually there is our creative power, and it's our ability to be our full selves. And the thing is that getting back in touch, like where we're at in our civilization at the moment, getting back in touch with those parts of the body and those parts of our experience is not easy. And the mind has a lot of resistance and is really afraid. And so there need to be ways of whoever is able of us supporting each other in getting in touch with those parts of ourselves, our innocence, eros, and sexuality and creativity as something which is natural and just part of who we are, rather than something that has to be like enclosed in a shameful little chamber outside of normal life. And it's like, imagine that our whole body is a musical instrument and we're actually using only a third of it, maybe, right? Or maybe a little bit more. But most of us don't use the whole instrument. And so we outsource this power to police, to governments, to schools, to institutions that keep us in a certain limited range of expression. And this is why you have depression, this is why you have anxiety, this is why you have all kinds of weird stuff and labels that we've created and pathologization. But actually, we can't move. We wanna express freely and let life move freely through us, but we need some support. And I think this is happening right now in many ways. And also my work, I think, is part of that movement that really is asking, okay, what is the full expression of us? Yeah. How can we get in touch with more of who we are? And for me, it's very much through sound. Yeah.
Yeah, I think hearing what you described feels very relatable. I certainly would describe myself sometimes as a floating head, within space. And my discovery or rediscovery of my body is happening. But the more I discover, the more I realize how much there is that I haven't quite connected to.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
everything you said feels very real and feels very relatable, and certainly looking around me, I feel that too. Yeah, walk me through how you use sound to help people understand this disconnection that you just described, and how you how you work with sound to help unblock and to help us express more and feel that into that authenticity.
Right. So the good news is that it's very easy. It's actually really, really, really easy and very, very fast to access this. It's actually something so primal and so basic in who we are. It's like the first thing that a baby does as it gets out of the womb is somehow to cry to the mother. It's just who we are. We are connectors. We want to connect. And so the voice is a way to connect to another and also a way to connect to ourselves. So you asked how I usually work, and usually I kind of create a container. So I create a workshop or a text or some kind of way to meet, because it starts from the connection, really, from the touch. And then the first thing I would offer mostly is to transitioning to an experience of what I call the vibrational body. So we close our eyes, so we don't navigate by visuals and appearances, but more through sensations and through the sense of vibration and aliveness that is in the body all the time, as long as we're alive. And so we lay on the floor and we close our eyes and we guide people into a meditation where they basically a sort of vipassana meditation, right? Really being with the body, being with almost like letting awareness touch the body and discover how the body feels as if this is for the first time. So it's creating a beginner's mindset towards this phenomena of the body as vibration. So I'm really asking, okay, what is actually the right foot. You know, if I put aside anatomy and I put aside my previous meditation and really, really ask, if I'm honest, like, what do I have as current information in my right foot? And then the body, through this, because the body is alive and is sentient and is conscious and is in conversation with us. And when we give this type of listening, the body starts to speak more and we start to be in contact with this vibrational body. So the body becomes sort of like the helicopter landing point where consciousness can like connect for a moment into something real, not into the imagined, I am this personality and I got betrayed and I'm this and I'm that and all these limitations that we carry, you know, but like what is actually a shoulder right now, you know? So coming into this very, very simple kind of phenomenological touch with ourselves. And then the first thing we do is really open the mouth. This is the first medicine. Because us as humans around age 2, 3, after being babies that are like, the mouth is open. I don't know if you've been around babies lately. It's really like this. Everything is interesting and everything is like open, so open. And then sometime, unfortunately or not, sometime around age 3, we learn to keep it in and to, you know, keep our private, this I shouldn't say, and this I need to say. And we kind of get into learn how to express and we start to close. And then through language and through the years and through a lot of different types of like, I would say social traumas, like small little like jolts of like, this is me and this is not me, and like sculpting my sense of what I can express. For example, just to make it clear, a lot of men are losing touch with their child voice when they actually don't have to, you know, where they can keep contact with this range, but socially they're told that this is not manly. And they're told to like, they are compelled to push down in order to assert their manlyhood. And same for women, like they think that if they're assertive and maybe aggressive and powerful, then they're not feminine. So they learn to kind of keep their expression very small and gentle and like, it's all just limitations. Yeah. So when we come into the practice, opening the mouth is really kind of a factory reset. First of all, it helps to communicate to the nervous system that there is no tiger or huge tsunami now, and I can open my mouth. I can connect the environment. It's safe to, and that's kind of an exposed place for a lot of people, right?
So for listeners who are not seeing this, your jaw is basically just hanging down and sort of feeling very loose and nimble.
Yeah. So really on the fascia, on the muscular level, we are holding a lot of these small jolts of limitations. And so for most of us, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders are the most tense place in the body. Like everyone that goes to massage, they say, do my neck.
As you say that now, I'm just realizing how tense and tight I am.
Yes. And we don't realize, we're just like, this is who I am, but it's, and so we really, really normalize that. And I talk about it like I talk now, and we really create a space where it's okay to be a little bit phlegmatic, a little bit uncollected, you know, like to start getting a bit more spacious with who I am. And then also like somatically, I can say that opening the mouth, I jokingly call this the archy pore, because it's like the archetypical opening. And if you practice this, and we do this for maybe 2-3 hours, you know, and different exercises, but with an open mouth for a long time. And then the whole like throat and heart and solar plexus and sex and root and all the parts are starting to feel like they have a bit more space they can take up more space and they can transmit through them more energy. And more rich energy and more loose energy and play. And so the mouth is really the first thing. And then we practice that and immerse in that for at least an hour, because you need some time.
Yeah.
And then we do a lot of other things, which I can talk about for hours, but you can let me know if that's enough or if you want to direct me.
Yeah. When you talked about men losing their childlike voice, and you mentioned also earlier about our bodies constantly speaking to us, but we don't know how to listen to it. And again, this feels very relatable because oftentimes there's so many voices in the head, and it's really hard to distinguish whose voice is that. And oftentimes, when I'm making a huge decision or even small decisions, there's just voices, telling you about what feels right, what should be right, what you should do, what describing the situation, and it can feel very chaotic. And what we try to do, what I try to do is to listen to this inner voice, but it's very hard to distinguish sometimes in this noisy, chaotic inner world as well as the outer world of sounds. How can you expand, share a little bit more about that, and why is it that we struggle with this?
Why we struggle, I don't think I can answer. Why we are designed like this, and this journey of finding authenticity really and finding who we are. But I know that, they say that on the mysteries in the mystery schools in Greece, the writing was know thyself. So this is the imperative that we are asked to make all these questions that you are now bringing, like through all the myriads of voices and identities and influences, how can I find my inner voice?
Well, I just couldn't help but remember one of the things everyone says is be yourself, but
What do you mean?
what do you mean?
Right, right. Right, and this is the way it goes. So we get like from society, from our parents, from our peers, from school, we get an image of who we are and who we should be according to someone's idea, but not yet according to ourselves. And it is actually, unfortunately, through struggle and through conflict and through pain and through dilemmas that we are pushed into realizing, okay, who can guide me? How can I find my way? Who am I? Right? Like, who am I? What am I? Who am I? And the more and more and more that I am connecting into this question, I realize that at the core, there is a deep silence and a deep nothingness, right? And Eastern philosophies talk about that, that the core of the self has an emanating nothingness. It's a nothingness that emanates experience, that emanates form. So even now, as I'm speaking to you, I don't have a script, right? I don't have anywhere that I'm reading from. I have something I want to say, but I don't know how it will come out. And my ability to lean into, I don't know, and I trust that through this nothingness, and as my system is more and more and more aware of the different layers, and also of my ego and my needs, and I know myself in all the layers, from nothingness into the most personal, humanly pathetic, human form that I'm taking on right now, and beautiful and spectacular, not just pathetic, but also sometimes really like this human, this, and like, yes, all the range, right? All the range. I'm saying this is like nothingness, and this is form, all the range. And for me, I think this is a very personal journey and quite sacred. Like, I don't think this is an answer that I can give someone and it's done. But I can speak my realization, and whoever can benefit or inspire from that, great, But for me, it's really been a journey of inclusion and a journey of discernment. So really understanding, okay, there are different voices in me. For example, voices, what's coming up for me now is a lot around my feminine identity. What does it mean to be a woman? How is me connected to womanhood? What is this thing? Can I completely ignore it and be whatever? Like a lot of the woke streams are saying, like you can just determine who you are regardless of the biology? Or is there a connection, intrinsic, something for me in my biology? So just as an example to how I navigate the inner voice, and for me, it's really being about like agreeing to admit that I don't know, that in the core of my being, there is silence, there is nothingness, and that still it emanates life, connects to life, and that I'm able to have a curious discovery, like to touch around different layers of my identity, feeling into them, but not identifying, not losing my sense of I am. How do you say? In Hebrew, we say, "Ehyeh asher ehyeh," which is I will be what I will be. I am what I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers,
Yeah.
but this is one way to answer, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a journey of exploring and playing around. I sense a sense of playfulness, of hearing voices, and when you talked about not identifying, that felt like a an aha moment, because oftentimes the challenge is we become identified to the voice, and then it can happen so subtly, but it happens, and then you can have your moment of realization that you're not the voice. But in this time of identifying to realize you're not the voice and you disidentify, that pulse or wave of time can be 1 minute or 1 hour or 1 day, a week, or perhaps
Yeah.
even a life. And what I hear from you is to be able to sit and watch and observe, and play, but not identify. And as long as we're
Right.
not identified, we can play more and we can get better at recognizing.
Yeah. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking that it's a bit like the music of forgetfulness, of remembering, right? Because think about music, and I will also answer it from another direction, but think about music. In music, there is sound that is happening in this moment, but it's happening, right, moment to moment. It's happening in reality, moment to moment, so that 500 people can sit in a concert and listen to the same music, right? But at the same time, it is our consciousness and it is our ability to remember and remember what was the chord before. And this chord now only makes sense in relation to the chord before. Musicality and music, and also identity and mythos and sense of self that is formed, is a lot around memory and repetition and patterns. And it's not bad. It's not bad. It's music.
Yeah.
Only we can come back also to the music of the moment, of the emergence, right? This is also a beautiful expression of intelligence. And we can get back into what I spoke before, that I'm learning from, like, being fascinated by voice. And I know that, for example, with voice, like I said, if we are concentrating on the sonic aspect, on the auditory aspect, we are actually too late, because the voice that I'm hearing has already left my vocal cords and my body, and then came in the room and bounced against the walls and came back to my ears. And by definition, whatever I'm hearing is a split moment too late. I don't have any way to change it or to control it or to navigate there.
Yeah.
So the reality that I'm now meeting is actually a moment too late. What is happening in the moment? The creative emergence of voice, as is felt in the tactile, is happening in the moment. So through the tactile experience, we actually have access to the moment in a very clear way. And for me, the flowering of this is that I'm able to have both, that I'm able to enjoy how my voice feels, as well as the after effects, as the resonance, right, as the returning waves of the voice. And this is, for me, this is multidimensional consciousness that we are graduating slowly into, where this is not bad, and this is not bad, this is not illusion. It's not illusion, it's just not the whole thing. And how can I feel this, and the space between them, and the whole field that is actually none of them? This is the field of listening, right? And so this gives me a very embodied, very concrete, and very accessible and simple way to experience a very complicated spiritual principle, but it's actually so simple, right? It's just, and babies do it, and animals do it, and bats do it, and nature does it. Exploring the space of who I am while also being in the moment of emergence.
Wow, everything you're saying is just really slowly
Making
sitting
sense.
with me and vibrating with me right now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's a meditation that a teacher of mine once shared with me, which I struggle with, and which is, the way he shared it with me is, when you're speaking, can you listen to the sound of your voice as you are speaking? And when you're having conversations with somebody, just sit with that level of awareness of listening to the sound of your voice, and that will start to shift your perception. But what I hear you is even one is even one level deeper, where you're like feeling into the vibration of sound before it has even bounced down the walls, and then I'm listening to it.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
it's deeper.
I think there the distinction that's important is the auditory versus the tactile. I think there is in principle something that is different in the communication aspect, like how fast actually. Because these are like overtones of meaning and story, which are also important, but this is like an immediate touch experience that is something we can really lean on. But yeah, what you're saying is that you're saying that there is like another layer of going deeper. And then I can say also, yeah, there is always more. Like there is also the silence from which this voice emanates, right? The nothingness.
Yeah.
And beyond that. So there's always more. And for me, that's why the voice is so incredible, because it's a channel that connects all these layers of phenomena of existence in a way that I can follow it and create it and observe it and create it. So it has this quantum self-observing, self-creating kind of thing in it, by definition. So
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what you're saying strikes me as just really, really important. Something at the core of the Light Forest mission, really, which is to live more authentically and to bring more light, is how I describe it, and to bring that light into how we change the world as well. So whether it's meanings making policies or economic systems and political entities, it's to create from that space. But as you described, is we are so disconnected from all of this, and
yeah,
us individually, we're so disconnected from our inner voices
yeah,
that it's just really, really hard, because then you feel like you're just this disconnected, unhelped person striving, searching without that feeling and that feeling of depth into that energy, which is what I feel like we're in, our world is in today. I mean, you're a musician and you're a creator being in the highest sense of creating so much and what you do. How has your journey then both been reinforced by your discovery of your inner voice and into this power, but has also this power influenced your journey as a creator? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
yeah. When you were speaking before about listening to your own voice, I had to remember the first time I was aware of my own voice. And that was when I was about 6 years, maybe 5, maybe 6 years old. And I had an argument or something with my mom, a disagreement, and I was crying. And I went into my room and I was crying and crying and crying, feeling how unjust and feeling so insulted. And then I was as I was crying, I was starting to listen to my own voice. And I was really like, wow, it's really beautiful. I was like listening to my own voice. And through listening to my own voice, the identification with the hurt changed and something opened up. So for me, that was very early. And it's kind of a gift, I guess, like always been a very nourishing, comforting, empowering way for me to connect to myself. And I always felt this sense of mystery, like I'm listening to something which is beyond, but something is coming through. It's like, what's in, where is it going? Where is it head? I was always kind of like curious. So for me, I really resonated with like the artist archetype that is listening and kind of meeting reality with curiosity and finds a way to play with meaning and play with form and play with something that seems limited, but then you do a little shift and everything changes. Like I really love that magical aspect of art. Yeah, I don't know, maybe you can direct me a little bit more, because I can share about my whole path.
In fact, actually, just hearing you speak just now and talking about the first time you heard your own voice reminded me of actually a little bit of my journey with hearing my own voice, but particularly with podcasts, actually, when I first podcast, more than 10 years ago. And the biggest challenge for me was actually listening to my voice. Like I did not
Okay.
like listening to my voice, and I found that to be one of the most unpleasant aspects of this production journey of like, do I really sound like that? And just accepting that. And now actually when I in this chapter of my life, I actually really enjoy that part, and I really enjoy the editing, and I enjoy listening to my voice in post, but that wasn't always the case. And I wonder whether there's something there, and whether, this sense of not being able to really accept yourself. Yeah, just as an anecdote, actually, just as you were talking.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I'm so happy it didn't discourage you, and that you went on to loving your voice and to enjoying hearing it. I think expression is always a journey through resistance. That's what I think. Every time I create a new piece, when I really, really am creating something new, it's a sort of it's kind of like giving birth, it involves a certain like stretching of what you can do. And it happens in different dimensions and in different ways. And a lot around what we are dealing as we come into our sovereignty is self-love, because a lot of our awakening journeys, people who are awakening right now, is a lot of the awakenings to say, well, society tells me that if I'm not this and this and this and that, and my parents say, I'm okay. Like, I'm me, I'm this, and learning to love, to understand this, to see how this is actually was created, and take more ownership and responsibility for who I am. Yeah. The more sovereignty there, it comes together with compassion, with, with hurting my hurts and with owning my journey. So that's definitely what you're describing is definitely part of the expression journey. And, maybe I can say another thing about that, if that's okay. Yeah. So it's something I also share a lot in my workshops, because it's really relaxing to understand that the apparatus of the voice, like the way that the voice, the physical voice is occurring, is showing us that the voice is a transient liminal being that is flourishing between allowing and resistance. And so a lot of us in the spiritual community like to talk about love and light and all of that. But when we talk about acoustics, in acoustics, the sound, just the terms of acoustics, the beginning of the sound is attack. Then there is sustain, and then there is decay. Like these are the words that are used. Why is it called attack? Because if we look at this vocal cords, and I'm urging you and everyone else to go to the YouTube and look at videos of how, of a camera of how the vocal cords look like. It looks pretty vaginal, I have to say. It's two membranes that are closing. It's a birthing canal, really a birthing canal, in the other direction, and that is gender, beyond gender. There is these two membranes that are, if they're completely open, no sound, like air passes through and touches the vocal cords, but there is not enough tension to create a sound. If it's completely closed, also no sound. The air is stuck. So it's a sweet spot. It's like a really particular sweet spot where there's enough resistance and enough allowance, and then the air bursts are passing through. So they're like shooting through, opening and closing very, very fast. So a sound that sounds like a constant is actually da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So in reality, the technology of voice is stills per second, is frame per second. It's momentary outbursts of air per second that are going through accurate type of resistance and allowance. So this is the being of the voice. The being of the voice has to do with overcoming resistance, overcoming something that pushes down. It doesn't have to be dramatic always. It can be actually really pleasurable. And this is what I'm teaching in the workshop. If you don't have like society telling you how you should sound, or music that you need to be loyal to a composer, you can really just let your own voice emanate. How do you navigate that? And for me, what I'm offering to navigate from is pleasantness, pleasure. Yeah, it's really letting, in each moment, letting my body do what it wants to do. And so the resistance part, like we say, oh, if I didn't have all this trouble in my life, and if I wouldn't hate myself so much, and if I wouldn't sabotage I would be a successful this and that, like, no, the limitations and the conditions are there for nothingness to pass through all these layers and to shine. This is the voice. The voice is the way, the particular artistic way that we say yes to who we are and we flow through. And then we forget it and we are blocked. And then we flow even harder. It's this game of like this drama of like coming into the light, coming forth into shining of who we are. And this is happening for each and every one of us individually and in relationships. And this is really, in that sense, a really exciting time to do this work because it's really happening now, the awareness and the consciousness around it.
Wow, I love this example that you just illustrated for us for many reasons, but also because it reminds us that oftentimes we see resistance, whatever story that we've attached to resistance, as a hindrance, as something that shouldn't be there. And it's because there's resistance that I cannot be. But what I'm hearing you say is that this is part of the ebb and flow of life. And actually, without the resistance, sound cannot emanate. And without resistance, your creation and expression cannot emanate. And I think that when we look at life, I think we can all relate that we've grown tremendously through adverse experiences. And one of the most basic initial, things you learn in any spiritual path is to see everything as a lesson. And to see this, what the mind is labeled as misfortune, in some way as as an attraction, and there is this energy of attraction and repelling that's happening, and everything that's happening in our lives is there for this very reason. Yeah, that's a really beautiful example. And actually, this maybe prompts me. I want to share a quote from one of my favorite Sufi authors, Hazrat Inayat Khan. And I think when I think about sound and life, I find the Sufis to be the ones to be the most clear on this. And I'll read you the quote and maybe I'll hear your response to it, which is, "The Sufis know of the past, present, and future, and about all things in life by being able to know the direction of sound. Every aspect of one's being in which sound manifests has a particular effect upon life, for the activity of vibrations has a special effect in every direction. The knower of the mystery of sound knows the mystery of the whole universe."
Wow. I have like shivers. It's so beautiful. And I would really love to hear more. I don't know where this quote is from, but yeah, sounds amazing. I agree. I definitely agree. The Sufi notion of life being a love affair between the soul and the beloved, really. And then everything in between is the way the voices are moving,
I want to ask you, there's a lot of questions I want to ask you, but maybe two questions that in particular that might be interesting to, especially to listeners. These days there's this trend of sound healing through sound baths and handpans, which of course I play and I love. And it's really cool and interesting to see how this is making its entry into the mainstream. I'd love your take on this trend and where you see the value in it, but also maybe any areas of caution as we see anything become mainstreamatized.
Yeah. I like sound baths. I don't go a lot, but when I am finding myself in something like that, I usually enjoy it. Yeah, like you said, everything that gets into the system of capitalism and scaling up and stuff loses its essence. I think, like with any offering, with anything that people do, if it comes from an authentic, loving place, it doesn't really matter what you are doing. And at the same time, of course, sound is the more powerful you are, the more responsibility you have. I can say that if the facilitator is not open in those channels themselves, it will probably not open deep channels within the people, usually, because when a group comes together and they are sharing a space, they are creating a joined field. And the facilitator is usually the one that is sort of like the consciousness that is tuning the field. It happens very kind of subconsciously.
Not just the bowl, the Tibetan sound bowl.
Everybody's listening to see what they will do. And so it doesn't matter if they tell you this is a safe space. If they are not in touch with their darkness as well as with their light, it's not a safe space, and probably you will not be able to touch a lot of depths in that space. And then it can be just a very nice experience, and that's fine. I think that the deeper tools you are using, for example, plant medicine, for example, sexuality, what is called sacred sexuality, the more you use tools that are going down and touching the subconscious, what we talked about is these taboo zones.
Yeah.
And the more you're like, dropping in a more like aggressive way internally, you need to know what you're doing. And you need to know what you're doing beforehand with yourself. So for me, the golden rule is whatever I've discovered to myself and whatever I've experienced, I'm able to share. So I can see, you asked about sound healing, but I can see a lot of like weird shit happening with ayahuasca and, psychedelic spaces, which I have a lot of experience in. And I can talk a lot about like my critique around both like the tribal kind of underground circle work that is very prominent now, and about the legislation and commodification through the legal channels that are happening with psychedelics, right? So that's a whole topic that I'm very passionate about, because I feel, that we are really losing touch with what these teachers, these frequencies are, and to know how to create the right consciousness and the right setting for these very deep-reaching, deep psychedelic tools to happen in a way that is sensitive and compassionate and effective, right? So I think there is a lot of stuff I could say.
Yeah,
but with sound, I think...
No, I invite you to share them, especially because I think on one level, as you said, this is, it's fantastic that people are being more awake and aware to the need to look beyond what's just in front. And we're all looking for tools, but somehow our systems and our society seems to take even what could be very beneficial, and then it becomes commodified. And then that just leads to a further deepening of the disconnection.
Sure. So I can just say, right, like for anyone that's listening, you're probably aware of that, but we are engulfed in a consciousness matrix that is very limiting, and kind of what we spoke about in the beginning, kind of harnessing our power, kind of taking our power, and we are navigating in a very narrow field of expression of, we can move only in a little part of who we are. And so whenever those tools that are mystical, that are spiritual, that are psychedelic, they go into frameworks that are still tuned into profit, right? Into looking at people as, how can I make the most money with the least amount of energy? How can I run a ceremony so it's just easy, and not allowing processes of healing to really happen, which are messy, and which are intimate, right? So for example, a lot of stuff that are opening in ceremonies, they should open with people that you really care about, and that care about you deeply, for real, not just for the ceremony. Or with therapists that have gone with you for a while and they know you and you trust them. Like these are the people that you should have a deep psychedelic experience with, not with someone that you paid now 500 euros to sing a few songs that they learned in Peru, and they don't care about you, actually. They don't see you as someone that they are really connected with. So I feel there's a lot of pretense and a lot of misunderstanding around what healing is. Healing is deep intimacy. When we are sharing space in healing, I am as vulnerable as whoever I am now supporting, in the role of supporting. I can be influenced, I can be touched, I can be contaminated by the illness, that the shamanic field is not safe in that sense. And therefore it needs a lot of relational care and a lot of really deep and quality work of investing in this question, who am I, and being willing to see my shadows, and being willing to see the parts that want to make money and want to be successful and want my ego to get, being willing to see it, being willing to accept it, and still to say, and still I want to do this, and still I want to bring forth my gift. So this is part of the journey and part of the drama, which also in the bigger perspective, it's also part of the awakening. But I can definitely say that, okay, maybe I can close this with a really like accurate advice. And it is to say that if the seed, because we were together in the Panpan and working a lot around seeds and talking about physical seeds, but also seeds like cognitive seeds and emotional seeds, like when the seed is healthy, when the seed doesn't have compromises, when we don't take the seed and cut its possibility to continue its life, when we allow the seed to be natural and full spectrum, then whatever plant will grow with the right conditions will be good. And so I am, for myself, I feel I'm really called to work on my seed, like a lot of inner work, a lot of seeing like, actually, I don't need to scale up. Actually, I don't really need this and this, everything that the capitalist machine is telling me that I need in order to be good. And no, like what am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I showing up today? Why am I speaking to you? And to see all the shadows as well as the core, and being able to start from there. And whenever I feel, okay, I've gone out too much, I'm losing touch with my seed, I fucking drop everything and I say like back to the source, like loyalty to truth beyond any career or any sort of project, And this is for me, maybe that's the very last thing I'll say. This is really feminine type of creativity or woman type of creativity where I don't just project something outside of me in a kind of goal-oriented, which is amazing, but it's just unbalanced, right? But I'm learning more to kind of emanate and allow something to happen in my universe, right? In my universe, in my world, and to see according to my world what feels natural, what comes out of love, what comes easily. And I think when I'm able to always come back into this nothingness and into the seed quality of silence, then I'm able to tune my path and continue to grow from a more congruent place.
That's really beautiful sharing. And
thank you.
Just so
Yeah.
tangibly useful too, because I think as you called out, like there's so much life pulls us out in so many directions and wonderful directions. It could be, trips and explorations and relationships and yeah, the whole stream of things, but coming back to source and living from that source. And sometimes you listen to that voice and it takes you to a beautiful place, but at some point you stop listening to the voice because you got attracted by the wonderful things on display in that place, and then it starts to weigh you down and weigh you down, and until you've realized like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
I've killed the golden goose, as the story goes. And I hear this wonderful reminder and practice that you use of coming back and remembering that it's only through connection through the source that then everything can emanate, the voice can express itself, and coming back to that. That's beautiful. Well, I want to
Exactly.
stick with
Yes.
the metaphor of seed, since you brought it up, and I'm really glad you did, and flourishing and the conditions we need for flourishing, and turn this a little bit to also to your life and to where you are in place, which is in Israel. I know that you've been nomadic for a few years, and currently your base is
Yeah.
in Berlin, but you're in Israel at the moment, and Israel feels, and that region right now in the world feels like there's just not a lot of love and light. You have on your Substack a line where you say you are learning to be sane while your country commits a genocide. It's really hard to comprehend. And so my background is in international relations, and so I was trained to study political trends and security and realism, and that was my initial view of the world.
Yeah. Interesting though.
And over time, you start to recognize that there's just so many deeper deeper things at play that are just far beyond what the eye can see. And I'm not even alluding to backdoor, conspiracies, but just like going back to what you said at the start of the conversation around we're just so disconnected from our power. We're so just caught up as heads and seeing the world around me right now, which feels very dark forest.
Yeah.
All that context is to just invite you to share. Can you help us to see beyond what we're seeing right now? Why is this happening? What might this be? What are we not seeing? I don't know. I can't really find the right question, but
It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is what I'm hearing that you're asking is really a question of communication. Like, we are usually people who are outside of the conflict zone, also in general, not just in Palestine, Israel, but in other disaster zones in the world. You get your information through the media. And today I think we're in a better place because there is so much independent reporters and social media. So in the sense, like the information is intense, like there is a lot of channels of information, which is good. But it's not the whole picture, of course. I don't know what you're not seeing because I don't see it because it's you. But I can tell you I can tell just to explain that I was born in Jerusalem and I grew up in Israel until I finished high school and then went to Switzerland and studied painting for 5 years. And then I was in New York and then came back to Israel and spent around 12 years. So I lived most of my life in Israel. And 3 years ago, I started to feel like the atmosphere became very dense and it was not, people have to understand the war didn't start in October 7th. The war was always there in different ways. The tension and the problematic of the state has been since I can remember myself, and it has gotten more and more escalated. But I grew up going to high school and not being sure which bus to take because this bus might explode. This is something that I experienced in my life, where if I would take the wrong bus, I wouldn't be sitting here. So liberal and open-minded as I want to be, I also have layers of a person that definitely grew up in a war zone and feels the threat. And I think a lot of us can relate to that in different parts of the world. It's really not just Israel and Palestine, but there is something about that place which draws a lot of attention. And there are also theories about why that might be, right? So I left Israel 3 years ago, and as you said, traveled the world and kind of based in Berlin, but still I'm quite nomadic. Recently I heard the call actually after we were in Thailand, and also doing that grief ceremony in the jungle with you guys, and really feeling like, okay, I'm ready. I can go back and reconnect. So for me, it's always been pretty simple. Like, there is only one, right? Going back into Sufi, there is only one consciousness, one people, one. I never understood the division into we are this and we are that and therefore we are fighting. Like, it never made sense to me. And so I always find myself in kind of the leftist part of the political realm just because, kind of humanist, super basic humanist, evident things that for me are super common sense. It's not even in that sense politics. It's just like, don't kill one another, please, And I think that there is a very complicated and very tricky thing in Israel, which is the fact that the state was established on top of the Holocaust trauma. And as a way to make sure that the trauma will never happen, which is a very good way to make sure that the trauma will happen. So if you resist that's how it goes. If you resist something that strongly, you inevitably manifest it. And the Israeli state has occupied a land and created alliances with other countries and created a situation where there is seeming safety and seeming, like, I would say, financial prosperity for Israel, like the high-tech nation and all that. But internally, because there was such a strong, I would say, really narrative control and mind control, like really growing up in Israel is really growing up with the narrative that we were prosecuted. It was always super dangerous for us, and therefore we have to have the Israeli state, and therefore we have to go to the army. And you're constantly bombarded with this narrative. And only when I was 35 did I first meet an Arab Israeli. Like there is a complete segregation between the Jewish population and the Arab population. And this is crazy because 20% of population of Israel are Arabs, so, or even more, I don't know now. But so the more I met with Arab or Palestinian Israelis people, the more I realized, wait, actually, like my family, my mom's family is Iraqi Jews. Like they spoke Arabic at home, and wow, why is their culture not incorporated in the mainstream culture? So it's very complicated colonialization, post-traumatic things that created Israel, and then through different movements that I perceive as kind of losing a sense of spiritual identity and sense of spiritual self, which is happening all over. The tribal and the nation identities are getting devoid of substance, and they become more like the machine. And so
As Hobbes
it's
originally
just
described them.
that's the way it's going so far. And I think that what people usually don't, friends in Europe or in the US, what they don't understand is that Israelis don't have access to a lot of the information about the occupation and the colonialization, and they don't really know how similar and how much love we have to share with Palestinian people. Like when I met my first Palestinian friends in the activist communities, I was like, wow, these are the coolest people ever. And, we share the same taste in music and the same taste in food. And we're missing, like, people talk a lot about the war, but actually culturally, and it's such a deep, how do you say, we're really missing really, really amazing connections and creative opportunities with people who are basically us. We're just creating this artificial divide. And yeah, I do have respect for people's stories about religion wars or identity wars and Arabs and Jews. Fine, but if I'm really honest, for me, for Faye, and this is my voice and I stand behind it, it's all resistance to the fact that reality is changing and we don't know what to do with it. And reality is changing because we are called to lean more and more into the feminine, lean more and more into nature, into the ground. And you can see the political issue and the war between people as an expression of disconnect from the land. So the more the Israeli high-tech bubble is flourishing, the more disparity there is from the actual ground. And this is why we are seeing what we are seeing now. And it's very, very encompassing. Like maybe that's the last thing I'll say. So at some point, me and another friend, we reached out to Alejandro Jodorowsky. I don't know if you know him. He's a very iconic film director, also a Jew. He's maybe now 94, still alive in Paris. And we sent him an email and we said, I think we lost our way. Can you please give us he does a psycho-magic. So he gives artistic acts as way for healing, sort of rituals to kind of bring healing. And what he spoke about, and that conversation is available on YouTube on my channel. What he spoke about is actually that the cause of the war is in the relationship between feminine and masculine, and in the relationship between women and men. And the fact that the whole Israeli state is exclusively organized, the whole army, the whole way of strategizing and thinking is exclusively organized by men. And the fact that women are not part of the governing processes, that there are numerous mothers that are sending their sons to be killed without their opinion being considered. This is what we're looking at. And the moment that men are going to say, we tried and we cannot deal with it, please help. Like this moment will be the moment of redemption, because in this moment, women will be able to say things which are more connected to these parts of life and not of identities and mind and stories, because biologically, somatically, we are more connected there, right? And when that moment will come, and again, it's not about gender, because there are a lot of men who are very connected to their feminine and they lead from there, and it's gorgeous when it's happening. But I'm saying like a trend of the mainstream. And like Jodorowsky said, like when there's going to be a man prime minister with a woman prime minister, and when they will be able to collaborate in leadership, that's where we will heal. Be a man general and a woman general, and they will be able to collaborate on being a general that's redemption. And this is what I'm praying for and I'm calling for. It's not for some kind of making women control men. No, it's about collaboration. It's about balance. It's about really, you know, saying, okay, everything that we've tried so far, it's not working. And we really need to be humble and listen to the mystery in order to seek a new path that is fundamentally different than everything that has been done before. And that is the calling. And I'm still believing this is possible, but it will take a lot of awakening and a lot of goodwill and a lot of miracles. But fortunately, this is reality. Reality is a miracle. So through all the layers of pain and grief that I'm feeling so deeply being here, I'm also really optimistic to be in touch, because I know that life will find a way.
I think everything you just shared was definitely illuminated the things that I was missing, but I think we can't see.
Good.
I think it's really important that you also raised the point that while the attention is on Israel-Palestine, it's everywhere. We're
It's everywhere.
seeing this unbounded, I like the way you put it, of gone so far to the extreme that we've sort of lost the substance of the soul. And so in that state, it's just like flailing.
Right.
And I think of there's the story of like, never confront a wounded wild boar in the wild. Like even a lion or a tiger doesn't do that, because the wounded wild boar, if you corner that, it will just, it can turn into a vicious animal.
Yep.
And I do sense some resonance there, where I see maybe it's gone so bad now, and maybe the hopeful message is that the pendulum has swung as much as it can to one side, and so now it has to swing back to balance.
Exactly.
At least to rebalance this extreme pole that we seem to be at.
Yeah. There is immense momentum now, and as the systems are crumbling, as the old narratives are no longer, everyone is feeling it in Berlin, in Thailand. Everyone is like, where is this world going? And beyond the fear, it pushes us into a place of like, then tell us, then it pushes us into humbleness and into our deep yearning to be free and to awaken. So I agree with you that the pendulum is quite high up there, and ready to like swing back, and we can ride it into awakening.
Yeah. And I think the challenge sometimes when the pendulum is swung so to the side is that you can just caught in this state of fear and state of like, I mean, since you're actually there, I mean, you're feeling what people are feeling there.
Yeah. I mean, the first 3 days that I've landed here, it was very tough and very hard. And the more you feel, the more you feel, the more sensitive and open you are, and open into the multidimensional reality. Landing in Israel is really getting that information. But I think I have to say, I think I have enough at this point, like enough perspective and like a very solid connection to nothingness, which is kind of a paradox, right? Like, but the ability to hurt and to get stuck and to get confused even, and then allow myself, this whole full moon now in Scorpio also, like, it was not easy. It was not easy, but there is always the same result of just like surrendering to what is and tuning in and remembering who I am and what I'm here for, and what are the things that I've discovered for myself, which is that we are, in this huge dream, and that every moment we can move freely, and like every moment we have the choice between realizing that we are soul, we're consciousness or soul or whatever you want to call it, we're freedom, or we're programming, and compassionately, trying to make our home in soul, like build here something that we can live in, that we can get back to, that we can, as you and I are now talking, I have an ally that sees me and that I see him in this consciousness. And so it becomes more real. And the more we share, the more we communicate, like definitely this is also part of why I'm so passionate about voice work, is that the more we share our true voice and our true expression and our truth, and we resonate and amplify each other, it doesn't have to be in the same words, but the essence is amplifying. And this is how we create like the mass that is needed for things to really change. And I feel that I don't know which form it will take, and I don't know if we'll have to go through natural extinction or not, but I know that consciousness can never die, so I'm not worried.
That's just, I think, a beautiful note almost to maybe end it with as we reach the end. And I'm so glad this is recorded because everything you just said is just sounded like poetry, and I'm like so
Oh,
happy this
thank
is on
you.
a
Yeah,
recording, and this is something that we
thank you
can
so much.
share. And this message that you've just shared, I mean, both for the hope for Israel, which I think is the hope for the world, like all, we're suffering everywhere,
Yeah.
and grateful for what you're doing and helping people. I've had the privilege to also be part of one of your exercises and feel the depth of that. And just as an end, is there, I know you have where can people find you? What are the kinds of work that people can do with you
Yeah.
online or in person?
Yeah.
If you want to just leave a
So
short little plug.
yeah. I can definitely share. First of all, just really thank you, Dev, for the opportunity and for the channel that we have. And everything that I've said is also possible because you are listening in the way that you are. I became very sensitive to, when I feel there's someone there, then I can bring it, so I really appreciate that. And so this summer I will be in Berlin and I will offer a very special program course in the summer with retreats, one-on-one sessions, and weekly sessions. That's called Song Master, where I'm actually going to transmit this quality of the whole channel between nothingness and form, and to kind of support other artists, other people who are discovering their own authentic voice, whether it's through artistic mediums or through cooking or through, I know, being a doctor. It doesn't matter what you do, but it's really how we step up into our artistic potential in this life. And this is happening in Berlin this summer. Then there is a retreat in New York. So you can see on my website, there will be the retreat program. And there is always the possibility to come work with me one-on-one, from therapy type of work into coaching and empowerment, and just like hanging out in the soul space and exploring, which is something that I really love doing. Yeah, and then you can really just follow my book writing journey, which is something that I've committed to this year. As you know, I told you, in Thailand, and then I ended up, really making space in my life to be able to write in a good way. And this is such an amazing thing that I love doing. So I'm starting to publish things from the emerging book in the Substack, as you mentioned. And basically, you can stay in touch with me through Telegram and through the website, and everything will be there. Maybe we can put it in the show notes or something for people to follow.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Be all in the show notes and on the Light Forest Substack as well. Thank you so much, Faith. This is just incredible.
super welcome.
And I hope you have enjoyed the rest of your time in it.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Light Forest, and also just blessing this movement of curiosity and communication and information all around the world. So thank you, Deb, and thank
Oh,
you
nice.
anyone that was listening and will listen.